These aren't real businesses.
But surely you don't think a daycare should just be unlocked. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a daycare.
It should be a reception.
It is. No, every daycare is locked.
Welcome to the Dollemore Daily. I am, what a coincidence, your host, Jesse Dollemore. Thank you for joining us. And if you have not already, please subscribe. Let's talk about today this story coming out of Minnesota, where Donald Trump is continuing to punish people who don't agree with him relative to policy or relative to white supremacy, because after all, that is what this story is absolutely about. The party of family values wants to ensure that family values really only matter when it deals with white people. And they are trying to fabricate controversy after the fact, after a fraud story that's been reported on for years in the media. They're attempting to act like the mainstream media is trying to hide this. It's just they don't pay attention to news, so they don't know that this has been a story that's been out there, and it's been in the process of being dealt with by government officials, including Tim Walz, for a long time. Let us begin there, though, with Donald Trump's post on Truth Social just this morning at 9:26 a.m. Eastern Time. Tim Walz of Minnesota is a crooked governor, he says, with 3 exclamation points, because then you know he's serious. Now, this story has reached a fever pitch of virality because of the fact that YouTuber, not journalist, conservative dipshit YouTuber Nick Shirley went out and tried to force his way into daycares. And when they shut the door on him, alarmed, like, who is this idiot with a camera crew, just these random men showing up, trying to force their way into a daycare facility. He's like, see, they wouldn't let me in. There's for sure fraud here. And we're going to get to that because there's the fix is in. There is collusion with the Minnesota Republican Party and very likely the national organization of the RNC. We'll get to that. But this is absolutely just a trolling stunt by a YouTuber, by one of these dipshits who gets off on pranks and harassment of people on the street. I've seen many videos in the past with him, with Walter Masterson and others, where he's trying to do gotcha questions, but clearly he doesn't know the facts. After all, he is MAGA. And it has led to, because this story has gone viral from the dipshit, people saying, well, see, finally, I mean, JD Vance retweeted his little video and finally an actual journalist is out there covering this. Again, not a journalist. CNN covered this back in 2022 and then again in October of 2024. The New York Times covered this in November of 2024. The Washington Post covered this again in 2022 and in 2025, just a few days ago. And of course, the local media there, the Minneapolis Star Tribune, has been covering this for years with regularity, this local story. So let's get to the fact that this Nick Shirley guy is absolutely working hand in glove with the Minnesota Republican Party. And you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go to the Minnesota House Speaker, the state legislature, the legislature's House Speaker, Lisa DeMuth, who tells it that way herself, that they dispatched Nick Shirley. They worked with Nick Shirley. They engaged the services of Nick Shirley. And then the other thing you're going to hear her admit in this 30-second clip is the fact that, this story definitely has been covered in the past.
By now, everyone has seen the viral video that in under an hour exposed more than $1 million in fraud. Our caucus has been working to expose fraud for years, including working with Nick Shirley and agency whistleblowers to get the information out to the public and to hold the Walz administration accountable. While some of these issues have been reported on previously, the amount of attention and outcry that you are seeing is a direct result of the massive frustration
Recording in progress
from Minnesota taxpayers.
So he's a Republican agent. He's an asset of the Republican Party to provide propaganda And the other thing that she also admitted is that this isn't a story that's being ignored by the national media or the local media. This has been covered over and over. Now, if you want to know who Nick Shirley is, he is not a journalist, even though CNN on their Facebook page, they posted this. Who is Nick Shirley, the 23-year-old journalist whose Minnesota fraud story just went viral? I don't know why they're posting that, because he is not that, as described by Frederica Whitfield in this particular clip from CNN, where they went and interviewed this guy. They caught him in the moment and they started asking him questions. And if you want to see a fish out of water, if you want to see a 23-year-old journalist panic because he knows he's in way over his head, watch this CNN reporter ask him questions specifically about trying to barge in the locked door of a daycare center where children are and need to be protected. Watch this.
However, the so-called evidence comes from a man who has posted anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant content in the past. CNN's Whitney Walz speaks to the man behind that video and takes a look at his claims.
We're from CNN. Can we talk to you?
This is MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. Back at a daycare in Minnesota, he alleged was a fraudulent facility in a now viral video.
People are going to say this is a left or right issue, but no, fraud is fraud. And so I'm not out here trying to put a twist on things.
Shirley's viral video, released over the weekend, in which he says he's uncovering tens of millions of dollars in fraud at Minneapolis daycares run by the Somali community, was retweeted by Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance. In the video, Shirley tries to open locked doors and talk to people at various daycares he claims are frauds.
Did you come during their normal operating hours when you came to visit?
I came at 11 a.m., I believe, and I also came the following day later in the day. The point of it is not whether or not I came at the right time of their operation hours. The point is that blacked out doors, they can't give you any information. You call that number, no one answers. I wasn't trying to go inside, and there should be a way for somebody to actually be able to call that number and somebody to be able to answer. These aren't real businesses.
But surely you don't think a daycare should just be unlocked. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a
There
daycare.
should be a reception.
It is
No, every daycare is locked.
It has their doors are locked. If
And
you
so,
go to a public
okay,
school or
you bring up a fair
private
point.
school,
That does not inspire confidence in me, does it? You feel like you're getting all the facts from that dipshit? Come on. So if you want to know what the facts are here, it's kind of a summation, a more pointed summation of some of the things I've said. Leslie Marshall on Fox News actually said this yesterday, really summed it up. That one, this isn't just Somali fraud. The tip of the spear in this entire fraudulent operation is a white woman. Also, that it hasn't been covered. There, so many points here need to be addressed because it's a fire hose of propaganda and lies coming from Donald Trump and the Republican Party, both at the national level and obviously the state level, that it needs to be combated. And thankfully, Leslie Marshall was there on Fox News to inform a fact recalcitrant audience of Fox News viewers of exactly what's going on.
Well, I looked at what he could be doing, and I looked at what he is doing. One of the things that ties his hands is this very legislature that is trying to get him to resign. Interesting, they're not asking for a recall. So when they say the people of Minnesota don't want him, we'll put it to a recall and let the people of Minnesota decide. Todd, love you. Google. If you Google, actually local Minnesota news outlets have been reporting on this for years. Speaking of years, during the Biden administration, there were 59 people convicted so far. The ringleader is not Somalian. She's a white woman named Amy Block. She was found guilty on all 7 counts that were brought against her. So there are people that are already in prison. And remember, some of these are not DHS or federal-related facilities. Some of these facilities were closed down for other reasons, not even fraud. But back to your question about Tim Walz. He asked the legislature in his state to give him more authority so that he could do more, and they said no. 1. 2, he also has closed a number of these centers already, and not just for fraud. They were investigating them for everything else. One, for example, on that video that went out, not the one from years ago, the one just recently, they were already closed because they were a bad daycare center. There was no fraud. They were just not doing a good job of the daycare. He hired outside firms to audit the payments to these organizations. He shut down the housing stabilization entirely, that department entirely. He has hired an overseer for this specifically. And he continues to try and get more, and I don't think, honestly, I don't think he should resign. I don't think he's going to resign. But I do think it's political, and Republicans say it's not. One, it's Republicans asking for him to resign. And two, he's less than a year from re-election, and this is definitely going to put a ding and a chink in his armor as he runs.
And look, if you don't want to take it from me, and you don't want to take it from Nick Shirley outing himself as a dumbass, and you don't want to take it from Leslie Marshall on the Fox News, you can take it from Barry Weiss's new CBS that posted this absolutely devastating tweet to the narrative that's coming from Republicans. Again, this is the new Fox News Lite CBS News. A recent video by conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley, notice they didn't call him a journalist, he's a conservative YouTuber. Conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley alleged nearly a dozen daycare centers in Minnesota that are receiving public funds are not actually providing any service. After the video went viral, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced a massive investigation on childcare and other rampant fraud in the state. CBS News conducted its own analysis of nearly a dozen daycare centers mentioned by Shirley. All but 2 have active licenses, according to state records, and all active locations were visited by state regulators within the last 6 months. CBS News' review also found dozens of citations related to safety, cleanliness, equipment, and staff training, among other violations, but there was no recorded evidence of fraud. How do you levy a safety violation against a daycare that is not operational? This is all lies. This is lies meant to punish a state and a leader of that state for not supporting the policies of Donald Trump, for not being sufficiently white supremacist enough. This is where we are with this. We're going to continue to follow it. What do you think? You can comment below this video. Come at me, trolls. Come at me, MAGA morons who have no idea about reality or the facts. I am ready for your dissent.
Yeah, I would say the report card is negative. It's minus. It's no good. And how do we know this? Well, why don't we just talk about Trump's negative net approval rating?
Look, I don't know if Donald Trump's not getting enough sleep. I don't know if Donald Trump is absolutely just withering under the weight of controversy. I don't know if Donald Trump is cracking up because of the fact that the Epstein files are bearing down on him like a heavy weight, like a rack, like at the end of Braveheart when they put all the rocks on the thing and crushed him and he's freedom. That's Donald Trump, except it's using Truth Social to do so. He went on yesterday. This little ditty here, windmills are killing all of our beautiful bald eagles, he said in this wacky ass post. A lot of people looked at this and said, well, that's kind of strange. The image is not fake. I'll say that. It is not a fake image. That's a real image of a real bird. It's not a real bald eagle. It's not even an eagle. It's been said that it's a falcon or some other species of bird, but it's not our bald eagle. It's not even our falcon. This is an image. If you image search, do a reverse image search, here's the full, not the screen grabbed with the 1200 by 1200, in Google image search. They just searched eagle, windmill, or wind turbine. I don't know. But here's the actual image right there. And if you do exact image search, God, the internet's pretty great sometimes. It lets you know that the reason I know it's not our bald eagle or even our falcon is the fact that it's Israel's falcon. Here's a headline from the Times of Israel. Environment minister seeks moratorium on new wind farms to probe impact on nature. And then here's another headline from Haaretz. 2 Israeli papers. This is a photo not from the United States, but from Israel. But Donald Trump is too stupid, or maybe Donald Trump is so wily and smart that he knows that MAGA is so stupid, they won't think critically about this. They won't look at this critically. They won't wonder, is the president really trying to tell us that wind turbines, wind farms are killing all of our bald eagles? You see, whenever Donald Trump feels he's in danger or he feels threatened or he feels bad about himself, if his self-esteem is not sufficiently robust, he takes to Truth Social and goes on 250 post sprees right around Christmas. He's losing it cognitively. He is slipping away in between naps during important Oval Office meetings. He is slipping away. It's just the way it is. The other thing that he posted was this little ditty here, this amazing little ditty here. The polls, here's what I love. Here's the image, put it up on screen there. Over 50% of voters approve of President Trump. He's posting an image that's saying over 50%. We know that to be untrue. He is right now at historic levels of disapproval by the American electorate. But even the image that he shows, he disagrees with. The polls are rigged even more than the writers. The real number is 64%. And why not? Our country is hotter than ever before. Isn't it nice to have a strong border, no inflation, a powerful military, and a great economy? 3 question marks, you know it's a serious question. Happy New Year, Donald Trump said yesterday. Even his own post disagrees with his own post. He says it's over 50%. The real number, 64%, while this thing is claiming 50%, over 50%. But they wouldn't say over 50% if it was 64%. That's like saying, oh, it's over 25% when it's 98%. And to give you an idea of just how devastating Donald Trump's polling numbers are. This is just from last week. This is the newest round of polling that Donald Trump's net approval is underwater in a way that it never has been. It's underwater even worse than the first term. And it's underwater because of the economy, because of military, because of immigration. Everything that Donald Trump ran on and promised us he would accomplish in 24 hours after taking office, people aren't seeing the results. They remember the promises. They just don't see anybody delivering on those promises. And in fact, we're going the opposite way. Not only are we not seeing lower prices at the grocery store, you know, the old-fashioned word groceries. Not only are we not seeing lower prices, we're seeing higher prices. Inflation is on the rise, and we are set to see it envelop us in a way we haven't yet this last year, because the tariffs are just now starting to kick in from the perspective of how many orders were placed pre-tariff to get people's stocks in order so they would not face the weight of those tariffs. Now that stock has been depleted, these companies have sold off all of the reserves that they purchased, and now they're going to have to be facing the tariffs. So you're going to be facing higher prices. These companies are going to be facing higher prices. Many of these companies, like I talked about last week, or this previous week, are going to file bankruptcy. Bankruptcies are up year over year at an astronomical level. We haven't seen the number of bankruptcies since like 2010, after the Great Recession that we faced because of another Republican debacle. But here's Harry Enten from CNN. Let's get to this. Here's Harry Enten from just this last week talking about Donald Trump's numbers and just how desperate it is that no two-term president with negative net approval at this point was positive by the midterms. This is a disaster for Republicans. And the fact that their leader, I'm going to get to the clip. I'm going to get to the clip. The fact that their leader will not face it because of his own insecurities and lack of self-esteem is going to drag them all down. Watch this.
Yeah, I would say the report card is negative. It's minus. It's no good. And how do we know this? Well, why don't we just talk about Trump's negative net approval rating? Every single day since March 12th, Trump has been in the red, negative. That is days in a row, 281. He has spent more time underwater than Jacques Cousteau, for goodness sake. The bottom line is this: the American people don't like what Trump's doing, and they haven't liked what Trump's doing for a long period of time.
281 days. So on what issues?
On what issues? All of them. All the key issues, because take a look here. Trump's negative approval rating. He's underwater across the board. Immigration, a key issue for him, underwater by 6 points. Foreign policy, which has been one of his better issues, underwater by 14 points. Trade and tariffs, of course, this has been a key component of Trump's presidency, underwater by 15 points. The economy, the reason Trump got elected to a second term, underwater by 16 points. And the Epstein case, which I think we'll be talking a lot about going into the latter part of this week, underwater by 29 points. Negative, 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 negative. It's just not any good for the President of the United States, regardless of what he says tonight.
Yeah, minus 29.
It's not good.
And then some of the files presumably are supposed to come out on Friday, so we'll see what happens with that number. Okay, Harry, so it's 281 days streak he's at right now. He's at the end of his first year in office. Midterms aren't until next November. What does history tell us about how likely it is things get turned around?
Yeah, okay. I think if you're a Republican thinking, hey, we still got 11 months to the midterm, or maybe 10 and a half. You do have 10 and a half months to the midterm to turn it around. But if history is any guide, it's not a good one for you, because take a look here. Term 2, negative net approval ratings at this point went positive by the midterm. Well, we have 3 examples. Richard Nixon, he was forced out of office, of course. He never went positive. George W. Bush, he never saw positive territory again. Barack Obama, earlier this century, he did not go positive by the midterm. We got the question mark for Donald Trump. But again, negative, negative, negative. It's just negative across the board for the President of the United States. He's, again, going to have to break history. He's done it before, but he's really going to have to do it if he really wants to give his Republican Party much of a chance come the 2026 midterms. Because if the numbers look like this and look like this, well, this will become another X.
That is a guy who used to irritate me because of the theatrics. But, being a theatrical hand waver myself, I'm kind of digging it. So thank you to Harry Enton for that analysis of the data. It's all good news. It's all good news, except for unless you're a MAGA supporter, unless you're a Trump supporter, unless you're Donald Trump himself. It's all good news. Anyway, what do you think? I would appreciate your feedback here. We can talk about it in the comments below the video.
President Trump just used his first veto of his current term to kill a funding project for drinking water in Colorado.
Trump is continuing to target his political adversaries with punishment using the weight and the power and the force of the federal government. And he's not just hurting the governor, in this case, Jared Polis of Colorado. He's not just hurting Griswold, who is the Attorney General, the Secretary of State of the state, not Democrats. He's hurting MAGA, rural MAGA voters. And he does not give a shit, because he doesn't give a shit about them anyway. He vetoed a bill yesterday to bring clean water to the rural eastern end of Colorado. He's hurting MAGA. And he's punishing MAGA. He's punishing Lauren Boebert in this case, and also some of the Democrats who run the state, because of the Epstein documents. Because remember, they pulled Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room at the White House to twist her arm and try to pressure her to vote against releasing the Epstein files, to not sign or to remove her signature from the discharge petition, which led to the vote. And then he signed the bill, but he's still so pissed off about it. He's doing this, I believe, not just to punish the Democrats, but to punish Lauren Boebert, the most loyal MAGA puke that there ever was. She is not an ally. She is not an opponent of Donald Trump. In fact, she's having a hard time finding anything negative to say. It's all coded and undercover and not quite getting there, not what you would expect. But here's a very brief list of the things Donald Trump has done to harm Colorado, the state at large, because he is so furious about the Epstein files and wanting to punish everybody. They relocated the Space Command out of Colorado. They've denied disaster funding for wildfires and floods. They're planning to dismantle the NCAR, the DOJ investigation of Colorado's prisons. He vetoed this clean water drinking water bill. And not mentioned in this list is Tina Peters, a MAGA election denier infiltrator who interfered with the 2020 election. She did the thing she claims everybody else has did. She allowed people access to the voting area and to the system, and she has been prosecuted for it. She is in prison for it. Donald Trump, on a state charge, Donald Trump tried to pardon her. That's not how the Constitution works, brother. A president does not have the power to pardon state or local crimes, only federal ones. And now he's furious about it. He tweeted this. This is out of order, but I'm going to tell you what he said. This was today at 9:20 a.m. Eastern time. God bless Tina Peters, who is now, for 2 years out of 9, sitting in a Colorado maximum security prison at the age of 73. As though old people don't commit crimes and don't deserve consequences for your crimes. And sick for the crime of trying to stop the massive voter fraud that goes on in her state. Parenthetically, he says, where people are leaving in record numbers. Hard to wish her a happy new year, but to the scumbag governor and the disgusting Republican rhino, that means Republican in name only, DA, who did this to her, nothing happens to the Dems and their phony mail-in ballot system. Donald Trump, by the way, uses mail-in ballot to vote every single time. He does not show up to the polls. He uses the corrupt mail-in ballot system. Idiot. The corrupt mail-in ballot system makes it impossible for Republicans to win an otherwise very winnable state. Then how do we have Lauren Boebert elected in the state of Colorado if it's so rigged? Why would they not want to get rid of one of the worst Republicans in the history of the Republican Party, Donald Trump? Make it make sense, dipshit. Make it impossible for a Republican to win in an otherwise very winnable state. I wish them only the worst. May they rot in hell, Donald Trump says of people who oppose him politically. Free Tina Peters. That's where he leaves it. So Donald Trump vetoed this bill. Here's a KRCC. Trump vetoes bipartisan bill to provide clean water to rural southeastern Colorado. And to give you an idea, this was unanimous. So there is hope. There is slight hope. This was a voice vote in both the Senate and the House. So we're going to have to see if the Republicans come up with some kind of intestinal fortitude, guts. We'll see if they have it to override his veto, because nobody objected to this when it came to a voice vote. But on 7/21/2025, it unanimously passed in the House. 12/16 unanimously passed in the Senate. So here is Boebert's statement. I want to read some of this, even though it is, again, not going far enough. President Trump decided to veto a completely non-controversial bipartisan bill that passed both the House and the Senate unanimously. Why? Because nothing says America first like denying clean drinking water to 50,000 people in Southeast Colorado, many of whom enthusiastically voted for him in all 3 elections. We'll get to that one. I must have missed the rally where he stood in Colorado and promised to personally derail critical water infrastructure projects. My bad. I thought the campaign was about lowering costs and cutting red tape. But hey, if this administration wants to make it legacy blocking projects that deliver water to rural Americans, that's on them. I'm going to continue fighting for Colorado and standing up for our rural communities, our farmers, our everyday blah, blah, blah. And I sincerely hope, she says, this veto has nothing to do with political retaliation for calling out corruption and demanding accountability. Americans deserve leadership that puts people over politics. Blah, blah, blah. She's sideways, getting there. I don't know whether to go. So I have Kyle Clark here, and he talks about it a little bit, and he talks to Lauren Boebert. But since I just read that, I want to juxtapose her statement that you just heard me read against this statement from her, which got cut from this news article, this news package that I was going to play, where she's like, listen, punish Denver. Yeah, punish the Democrats for disagreeing with you on policy, but don't punish us. Don't punish MAGA. Punish them. That's not how it should work. Democrats don't pick and choose when to fund disaster relief because Mississippi got hit by a hurricane and it's a red state. That's not how it works. That's not how it should work at all. So here is Lauren Boebert in direct contrary to her statement, saying that Donald Trump should punish Democrats and not punish Republicans.
You look at other things like Tina Peters or even the sanctuary policies in Colorado. Certainly, I think there are some things where there should be accountability held, especially when you look at the sanctuary measures in Denver and other places, especially Denver, where they've doubled down on sanctuary policies. But we're talking about Southeast Colorado, who's overwhelmingly voted for President Trump in the last 3 elections. And these are not the people that should be attacked. We've lost Space Command. If he wants to go after Boulder and some client activists with some of our weather systems there, sure, we can reduce the size. But this is, again, non-controversial. This is providing access to clean water.
Yeah. Again, not how it works. So here is Kyle Clark, again, great journalist in the state of Colorado. He talks about this particular issue, how the legacy of this particular project goes back to the 1960s. But he did, I don't know why, omit Lauren Boebert saying the thing that you just heard her say about punishing Democrats, not Republicans.
President Trump just used his first veto of his current term to kill a funding project for drinking water in Colorado. The bill passed Congress with unanimous bipartisan support. This veto comes as Trump has promised retaliation against Colorado for keeping his ally Tina Peters in prison for her scheme to tamper with voting systems. Trump's recently denied disaster funding to Colorado and is breaking up the NCAR science lab in Boulder. This pipeline project is in the district of Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who recently stood up to Trump to force the release of the government files on the infamous pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Trump is now killing the bill to finish the Arkansas Valley Conduit, a decades-long project to bring safe drinking water to 39 communities on the eastern plains between Pueblo and Lamar. The groundwater there is high in salt, and wells sometimes unleash radioactivity into the water supply. This project was first approved by Congress in 1962. In recent years, the cost estimate nearly doubled. Trump's veto message called it a taxpayer handout, suggested it should be paid for locally. Colorado's Democratic senators have chipped away at the funding gap on this project for more than a decade, and Republican Congresswoman Boebert sponsored the House version of the bill to get it across the finish line. She told me tonight she hopes that this veto is not political retribution.
It does make you wonder, and I hope that's not the case. I've been told by the White House this is not retribution, but when it's the first of 2 bills that have been vetoed in this administration in just the first year of this administration, it kind of makes you want to step back and say, well, what's really going on here? But regardless, I was elected to serve Colorado's 4th district. This project stretches beyond the 4th district to constituents that I have served in the past and will continue to serve. And I will ensure that they get this access that they so desperately are needing.
The Senate and the House sent this bill to President Trump by voice vote, which suggests there could be wide margins to overturn the president's veto, but only if Republican leaders in the House and Senate will allow an override vote. Boebert said that she's already been in touch with Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson to figure out ways to pass this funding bill, either through a veto override or by rolling it into other legislation.
This is just another tick, just another tally mark of the horror that Donald Trump brings to the United States in an effort to make himself a king, to disregard the well-being of Americans, because he doesn't fucking care. He never will care. He doesn't have the ability to care. He cannot conjure empathy. He is not a leader. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please consider becoming a channel member here on YouTube. You can click the join button for $2 a month, support the work. You can also, even better, go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast and become a supporter of this independent journalism and independent reporting and independent analysis and commentary on the news. Primarily that, more that than journalism, but It's a new wild world, is it not? Should I read that one more time just for good measure? I like that why put only Kennedy there, comma. Trump deserves the name on it. All right, fantastic. Yesterday, the 35-year-old granddaughter of John F. Kennedy died of a rare form of leukemia, Tatiana Schlossberg. And Donald Trump, rather than offer condolences to the family, attacked them on True Social in a not even sideways manner relative to the Kennedy Center and the renaming of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center, which is coming with it all kinds of fallout relative to artists canceling their shows and being threatened with lawsuits because no artist, no actual talent wants to perform in a monument to fascism, which is what it is now, named after Donald Trump. This is from this outlet here. Tatiana Schlossberg, granddaughter of JFK, dies at 35. Tatiana Schlossberg revealed she had been diagnosed with a rare type of leukemia in an essay in the New Yorker last month. She was highly critical of her relative, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the U.S. Health Secretary. As a cancer survivor, 3 years ago, I got colon cancer and had a surgery and they removed a third of my colon. Everything's fine. Everybody asks, I'm fine. I don't have a colostomy bag or any of that. I'm just normal, just less colon. Maybe I poop more. Who knows? Maybe it's too much information. But yeah, this hits for me because my family was devastated with worry, trepidation, nervousness, anxiety. It was a trauma on the family, not just on my body having cancer, but on my extended family of choice and family of blood. They worried. So I can't imagine, and I survived. I can't imagine what the Kennedy family is going through right now when the 35-year-old member of their family dies of leukemia. And then Donald Trump makes a point to take a victory lap, posting from MAGA psychopaths on True Social about how the Trump Kennedy Center and attacking the Kennedys for not taking care of the dilapidated Kennedy Center, something it very much was not. This is the headline from The Independent, and then I'm going to read through these psychotic posts to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. Trump elevates social media posts attacking the Kennedys as family mourns cancer death of JFK's 35-year-old granddaughter. President Donald Trump reacts to death of journalist Tatiana Schlossberg from blood cancer by posting screenshots of criticism of her famous political family. President Donald Trump is drawing renewed criticism after responding to the death of Tatiana Schlossberg, granddaughter of the 35th president John F. Kennedy, on Tuesday by reposting criticism of the Kennedy family on Truth Social. Schlossberg, 35, was an environmental journalist who wrote for the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the New Yorker. She passed away after being diagnosed with a rare type of acute myeloid leukemia, a blood cancer. Her death was announced by the JFK Library Foundation yesterday, which said in a statement, "Our beautiful Tatiana passed away this morning. She will always be in our hearts." Schlossberg is survived by her husband, George Moran, their 3-year-old son and 1-year-old daughter, her parents, Caroline Kennedy and Edward Schlossberg, her brother, Jack Schlossberg, an aspiring congressman, and her sister, Rose Schlossberg. But rather than pay tribute to the deceased or express condolences to the grieving family, the president fired out 3 posts consisting of screenshots of negative comments about the Kennedys' supposed neglect of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., the performing arts venue Trump has taken over this year and rebranded the Trump Kennedy Center. Now, let me say a couple things. One, I've been to the Kennedy Center on multiple occasions. It was not dilapidated. It was not crumbling. It was not disintegrating. It was not in disrepair. It is a glorious monument to the arts. It is beautiful inside and out. Brittany Page and I went and saw Norah Jones last year. So Donald Trump is elevating lies. No shocker there. This is from Richard Grenell. I guess he's the new president, or he has something to do with the chairman of Trump's chairman of the board. but he is the one threatening lawsuits against artists who back out. The Trump Kennedy Center shows a bipartisan commitment to the arts. The Trump nothing does a bipartisan anything dipshit. But here are some more egregious ones. Here's Lindsey Graham, and then we'll get to some more less commonly known MAGA morons. Lindsey Graham, he says, this well-deserved honor has been given to President Trump because he has poured his heart and soul into refurbishing and revitalizing the now Trump Kennedy Center, a national cultural icon. Another Donald Trump ass lick, grundle butter desiring Leo Terrell says, I voted for this. President Trump saved the Kennedy Center. You voted for this, Leo? This is what you voted for? This moron says the Kennedy family have long neglected the Kennedy Center, by the way. They don't raise money for it. They never show up. And the only Kennedy who has ever been there recently is a member of Trump's cabinet. The Kennedy Center stood for decades as a crumbling monument to liberal neglect. Nobody ever heard anything about the Kennedy Center until Trump got into office. Is that right? Nobody ever heard anything about the Kennedy Center until Trump got into office? These people actually believe this nonsense. These people are cloaked in conspiracy. Their vision is blurred and blotted out by lies from the dear leader. Love this. Democrats' head will explode. Finally, we are renaming buildings the right way. He saved it. He deserves it. Look at that guy, Richard Marshall. Yeah, he looks like a regular attendee of the Kennedy Center, does he not? This moron, I voted for this, the Gulf of America, the Trump Kennedy Center, the Department of War. MAGA's the fix. By the way, the other thing I love here is that Donald Trump had to go to Twitter where people actually have conversations. He couldn't just get screenshots of things people have said on Truth Social. I love it. It's the correct plan, and it will drive the lefties mad, because this is what it matters. This is why this is important to MAGA, is because it drives the leftists mad. The only reason we're bothered by it is because it signals something larger. I don't care what the Kennedy Center is called. I don't care. But I do care about a man who has dictatorial intention, who's renaming things after himself, planning to put his face on money while he's still president of the United States, like he's some kind of a Roman fucking emperor. That's the problem. And let's finish with this one, King's Crown. I like that why put only Kennedy there. Trump deserves the name on it. Should I read that one more time just for good measure? Fantastic. This might be Donald Trump's alt account. It's so incomprehensibly stupid. I like that why put only Kennedy there, comma. Trump deserves the name on it. All right. Fantastic. Brilliantly written, sir. King's Crown BTC or whatever the name was. I've already covered it up. Anyway, this is cruelty. This is callousness. This is not decent. This to say that it doesn't rise to the level of what we should expect from a president. This doesn't rise to the level of what we should expect from your neighbor. If you've got a shitty neighbor, they would behave better than this. Donald Trump doesn't have it in him. Not only does he not possess empathy or sympathy, he doesn't even possess the ability to fake compassion. That a 35-year-old woman died of rare cancer and the family grieves. And he piles on with MAGA bullshit. Dead man walking. Somebody should put him to sleep now. It is the only, what did he say? It's the humanitarian thing to do. It's the compassionate thing to do. Someone should put Donald Trump to fucking sleep. Again, throw up the tweet, Chris. Throw up his post. I'm just quoting Donald Trump. The thing he said about Stephen Colbert. What do you think? I'll let you know when the Secret Service knocks on my door. This is not even who we want as regular cops. Military enthusiasts, UFC dipshits. We want professionals. I have talked on multiple occasions about the recruitment effort of ICE. They are not just lowering standards, they are removing standards for recruitment. There's no age limit anymore. There's no physical fitness limit. They're recruiting people who are illiterate, who cannot do open book tests and pass. They are recruiting people with criminal records who have to leave training to go and deal with gun charges in court. It's a serious situation that this is Donald Trump's masked secret police force. He wants a paramilitary organization operating on United States soil, kidnapping community members, not just migrants, but also American citizens. And now we're learning from exclusive reporting from the Washington Post that it's getting worse relative to where they're going to recruit these idiots. They want military enthusiasts and Second Amendment defenders. Here's the headline from the Washington Post. ICE plans $100 million quote unquote wartime recruitment push targeting gun shows, military fans for hire. A strategy document shared among immigration officials details plans to use influencers and geo-targeted ads to supercharge their push to hire thousands of deportation officers nationwide. They want as many Nazi fucks as they can get. Military rejects, military enthusiasts, these armchair wannabes who never could cut it in the military, so they just talk tough. These stolen valor dipshits. They didn't have what it took when they had the moment, the opportunity to serve in the United States Marine Corps. They didn't have it. So what are you going to do? I'll be an ICE agent. I'll harass. I will target. I will detain. I will violate the constitutional rights of not only migrants, but also American citizens while my face is covered and I have no name tag. I will be masked secret police. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials are planning to spend $100 million over a one-year period to recruit gun rights supporters and military enthusiasts through online influencers and a geo-targeted advertising campaign, part of what the agency called a wartime recruitment strategy it said was critical to hiring thousands of new deportation officers nationwide, according to an internal document reviewed by the Washington Post. The spending would help President Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda dominate media networks and recruitment channels, including through ads targeting people who have attended UFC fights, listened to patriotic podcasts, or shown an interest in guns and tactical gear, according to a 30-page document distributed among officials in the summer detailing ICE's surge hiring marketing strategy. This is not even who we want as regular cops. Military enthusiasts, UFC dipshits. We want professionals. People who not only have the ability to comprehend the oath that they will eventually take to the Constitution, but the ability to just read and write and comprehend. The Department of Homeland Security has spoken publicly about its fast-tracked effort to significantly increase ICE's workforce by hiring more than 10,000 new employees, a surge promoted on social media with calls for recruits willing to perform their, quote, sacred duty and defend the homeland by repelling foreign invaders. The agency currently employs more than 20,000 people, according to ICE's website. ICE is Gestapo. ICE is absolutely a Nazi white supremacist force within the borders of the United States. It needs to be demolished. It needs to be abolished. We do not need ICE performing any duty within the borders of the United States. Every single one of these masked thugs should be held accountable for their crimes when all of this is over. We need to have a tribunal and prosecute and imprison, and maybe more than that, if it leads to a charge of murder, which we've seen, Dozens and dozens of people have died just this year in ICE facilities, in ICE detention facilities. The secret alligator Alcatraz idiocy that's going on all over the country. But the document reported here for the first time reveals new details about the vast scale of the recruitment effort and its unconventional strategy to, quote unquote, flood the market with millions of dollars in spending for Snapchat ads, influencers and live streamers on Rumble, a video platform popular with conservatives. Under the strategy, ICE would also use an ad industry technique known as geofencing to send ads to phone web browsers and social media feeds of anyone who set foot near military bases, NASCAR races, college campuses, or gun and trade shows. That's just where you want to go to find people who have no respect for the Constitution. Look, to say that you want to target Second Amendment or guns rights supporters, if you've taken an oath to the Constitution, you took an oath to support guns rights. But you don't have a right to own a weapon of war, to carry a weapon of war in the streets. You don't have a right to own an AR-15 style assault weapon, which is, in effect, minus a couple of different features, the M16A2 service weapon that I use in the Marine Corps. There's not a 3-round burst on an AR-15, but it's a semi-automatic. Just like the M16, the same powder, the same grain, the same caliber. It is the same weapon, not just in appearance, but in performance. And this is where they're going to recruit dipshits to be a part of Donald Trump's paramilitary organization. The document was also distributed among ICE officials in the days after the agency published a request for bids seeking contractors who could use quote-unquote precise audience targeting, performance media management, and results-driven creative strategies to, quote, accelerate the achievement of its recruiting goals. The language in the published bid closely mirrored language in the strategy document. The same month, DHS awarded 2 marketing firms nearly $40 million to support ICE's public affairs office recruitment campaign, according to federal awards data. Here's the other thing that the media needs to jump on and do some reporting on. Who owns these companies that are getting these tens of millions of dollars in bids to do advertising for the Department of Homeland Security? Is it a close pal of Donald Trump or Kristi Noem or some other MAGA ghoul? I think if we follow the money, we will surely find that to be the case. It's unclear how much of the spending and strategy have been carried out, but the plans outlined in the document have coincided with a rush of recruitment ads online seeking Americans who will, quote unquote, answer the call to service. The rapid recruitment approach is unlike anything ICE has ever pursued, said Sarah Saldana, a director of ICE during the Obama administration, who recalled the agency filling its open positions through local police departments and sheriff's offices with appeals to officers' interest in federal public safety work. She said she worries that the speed with which ICE is racing to bring on new hires, coupled with the ads campaign's framing of the jobs as part of a war, will raise the risk of the agency the risk that the agency could attract untrained recruits eager for all-out combat, something we're already seeing. Final paragraph. The appeal to law enforcement should not be the quicker we get out there and run over people, the better off this country will be, she said. That mentality you're fostering tends to inculcate in people a certain aggressiveness that may not be necessary in 85% of what you do. Spoken about as trepidatiously as one could put it. I would put it more aggressively. We don't want Nazi fucks as police. We don't want Nazi fucks with the police power to detain and arrest and abuse, because that is what is taking place right now. And they're going to pay $1/10 billion not to pay, just to recruit. Doesn't that not sound like an outsized figure to you? It sure as hell does to me. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video, wherever you are watching it. If you're on Facebook, click like and follow the Dollemore Daily on Facebook. Also, go over to YouTube and subscribe. It is free to do so, and I would appreciate it very much. You can also call the voicemail line 714 576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollamore.com. I'm going to go. I love and appreciate you very much. Happy New Year. It is New Year's Eve. I love and appreciate you. See you next time. Be genuine. Be safe tonight if you're going out on this rookie holiday and drinking, and take care of one another.
I think Jared Polis should be hung. I think Jenna Griswold should be hung. I think Phil Weiser should be hung. I think they should hang by their neck until dead.
Many of you know that I grew up in northern Idaho around a bunch of radicals with sympathies toward militia types. Grew up believing that there was a grave injustice against Randy Weaver, the Ruby Ridge character, if you go back that far into radical white Christian nationalist types. And I say all this to say that there used to be kind of a quiet, a hush, a secretive nature about the more radical elements of those types. And they have just been normalized in Donald Trump's America. He has ushered them in, welcomed them in with hundreds and hundreds, nearly 2,000 pardons after they attempted to overthrow the United States government in a fever dream attempt to overturn a free and fair election. But they are out there. And it's no longer secrets. It's no longer whispers. It's no longer dog whistles about their intentions. I've talked about this particular character multiple times over the years. Joel Oltmann, who is now a candidate for governor of the state of Colorado. He's at it again. His favorite thing is to say who should and should not be put to death, who should not be hanged by the neck until dead, he's fond of saying. He's also an anti-Semite, which really doesn't fly with this new party, the Republican Party that loves Israel. It's kind of a bummer for these evangelical types who need the Jews. They need Israel in order to see that the prophecy of the rapture, which wasn't even a doctrine until like 1833, but they need Israel in order to get Jesus to come back. So there's a means to there's an end that is envisioned that they need. So they have to tolerate, I guess, Israel. But so he calls them the synagogue of Satan, any Jew who holds office in Colorado. But I want to share this with you. This is from Kyle Clark, who is an intrepid journalist in the state of Colorado, really pointing out a lot of the dangers that face us as a nation, not just in Colorado, because if this guy becomes governor, we're all in a worse situation for it. I don't know whether let's do this. Let's play the most common or the most, the latest episode with Joe Oltmann. And then we'll move on to look at some of his past obsessions about hanging people until they're dead from the neck.
The latest Republican running for governor says the current governor should be executed, hanged, along with Colorado's Attorney General and Secretary of State, hanged for treason. MAGA podcaster Joe Oltmann says all three state leaders who are Jewish are part of a quote-unquote synagogue of Satan Jews and should be executed.
I think Jared Polis should be hung. I think Jenna Griswold should be hung. I think Phil Weiser should be hung. I think they should hang by their neck until dead.
Oltmann says his top priority if he's elected governor would be freeing Tina Peters, who's serving prison time for tampering with voting systems in search of election rigging, which Oltmann claims has fixed every election from the governor's race to recent school board races in Douglas County, where he lives. Oltmann has suggested that President Trump should institute military tribunals and have tens of thousands of Americans executed. Oltmann recently said, quote, "I think violence is probably the only solution at this point." Despite Oltmann's years' worth of calls for executions, he has maintained a prominent role in Colorado Republican politics, speaking at official party events, endorsing candidates, and hosting fundraisers at his chain of gun shops.
Violence is probably the only solution, says this coward who just flaps his gums, who constantly rails. He's obsessed with this notion of hanging traitors while he is actively acting as a traitor against the country. I guess what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander. Right, Joe? Right, Mr. Altman? This is from, look, a year ago in March 16th, I believe, was a weekend. I did this video and I titled it "Psycho Influential Republican Calls for Killing Joe Biden." And this is a minute and a half or so. This should just give you an idea, again, from Kyle Clark, about the dangerous ideologies that this guy wants to normalize, that he has been granted power and influence within the Republican Party, not just in the state of Colorado, but nationally. The global Republican Party is being led by doofi, whatever, like this dipshit. And it is absolutely dangerous when he's calling for the death of elected officials with no pushback, with no condemnation whatsoever from the Republican Party at large.
The conservative political activist, who also owns DCF Guns in Colorado, is calling for President Joe Biden to be killed, to be tried and executed for treason. It's not the first time Joe Altman has called for the deaths of his political opponents.
We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
Look, I have gun stores and ranges.
DCF Guns co-owner Joe Altman.
I'm not taking one gun off the shelf.
Talking about President Biden on his nationally distributed show Conservative Daily last Friday.
That is the definition of treason, and he should be hung by the neck until he's dead. Sorry, that's the consequence. You say, oh my gosh, you're calling for his death. I'm calling for him to be put on trial, held responsible for hurting Americans, for standing against the Constitution we have, and the consequence of that should be and is up to death.
Altman's call for President Biden's killing follows similar rhetoric about executing specific U.S. senators. This that he said about Democratic Governor Jared Polis.
You are a traitor. Gallows.
And Altman's call for mass hangings for treason.
I said I want to send the media to the gallows, the mainstream media to the gallows, radical leftists to the gallows, traitors to our nation to the gallows, and they all kind of fit in the same bucket.
This guy owns a gun store. While reminding, well, if there's any feds out there, I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I'm just exercising stochastic terrorism, which is exactly what he's doing. Calling for the hangings, calling for gallows, gallows, gallows. That's the answer. As he gets a rise in his pants over the prospect of murdering the death of Democrats. Anyway, hell of a way to start the day, am I right? What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments. Talk about this particular violent traitor to the Republic.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement.
So Donald Trump is a dipshit, and he's a dumb guy. And Donald Trump endangers us because of his dipshittery and dumb guy nature. And I don't just mean because of policies that he puts forth to strip away health care from people and not allow women bodily autonomy in their health care and reproductive choices, not just about how he endangers the LGBTQ community or black and brown Americans in this country or kidnapping people off the streets of America. Pick your poison. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the dismantling of national security of the United States. And Donald Trump very likely outed a covert Central Intelligence Agency operation in Venezuela, where a bomb exploded, a massive explosion at a dock, or as Donald Trump, you'll hear him explain it, it's an implementation area. It's where they implement. I mean, this is serious because it does put us all in danger that Donald Trump can't keep his flapping gums from spilling the beans about operational security, about intelligence. And the Republicans, as I was getting ready to say, what they're going to do is say, well, he can, if he says it, then it's declassified. That's how it works. That Donald Trump is the king. He's the dear leader. He can do whatever he wants, not actually grappling with what kind of damage he does to sources and methods, not just intelligence gathering, but an operation. People on the ground, human assets that are actually seeing his policy objectives through explosions and bombings, secret bombings in Venezuela, seeing that they get accomplished. Let's start, though, on the day after Christmas, where he was on Katz and Cosby, a radio show / podcast hosted by just a couple of Fox News rejects. Rita Cosby and Joe Casamides, I think his name is. And this is where it started, where he spilled the beans on this. And then he doubled down in an even more egregious way. But the reason I want to play this particular part of the interview is because it seemed like it was an unscripted thing. He wasn't intending, it was just going to be a call with the host. And then the guy's like, hey, you want to go on the air? We can go on the air right now and talk to my 1 million listeners or whatever. And Donald Trump seemed certainly unbriefed. Underbriefed, to be sure, maybe unbriefed altogether. And then the fun begins.
1 second. I got President Trump on the phone.
Hold on.
Mr. President?
I had to save that attack for Christmas Day. Do you agree?
I agree. I am in the studio right now broadcasting to 1 million people.
Oh, wow.
Would you like to say hello to them?
That's great. Yes, I will, but I have to go quick because I have China.
We'll do it right now. You got China on the other line. President Trump is on the line. Mr. President, say hello to 1 million people for WABC.
Millions and millions knowing how successful your show is. They all love listening to John and his great wisdom. That's good.
And President Trump, like I said to you, to save those Christian lives in Africa, because there's so many Christians losing their lives. And you did a great job.
Tens of thousands of Christians, and I told Nigeria and I told the people around Nigeria that if you do it, you're going to get hit. And I said yesterday, hit them on Christmas Day. It'll be a Christmas present. We hit ISIS, who are terrible. They're butchers. And we really hit them hard in different locations, and they really got hit hard yesterday. So they got a very bad Christmas present.
You love how they're only concerned about, as an aside, by the way, they're only concerned about Christian lives. It doesn't matter if Muslims are dying all over the world. It only matters that Christian lives are being taken. Is it bad? Yeah, to be sure. We should stop death and war and genocides against all peoples. It matters no more important that it's a Christian life, does it? Apparently it does to these two dipshits. So that, back to the point, seems like an awkward entrance into this radio interview, right? Like, you want to go on? Oh, he goes, okay, it's going to have to be quick. Like, this was unplanned. Donald Trump was unbriefed, unprepared for these questions. And then he spilled the beans about this explosion, this bombing that took place, apparently at his command. And then we'll get to how he outs it as a CIA operation.
And I've told people that Maduro, Venezuela, if Venezuela is going to provide a lot more oil to the United States of America if Maduro leaves.
Well, it's about a lot of things. It's about that. It's about, they took our oil. They took it. And they also sent millions of people in there from jails into our country, from jails. Some of the worst people on earth, Tren de Aragua. They emptied their jails into the United States. As you know, they send drugs in. And I don't know if you know, John, but drug traffic is down by sea now, 97.2%. Wow.
Nobody understands, Mr. President, that why the Democrats are objecting to knocking out those boats that are carrying drugs that are going to kill our people.
Well, they're only objecting because I'm the one doing it. If it were anybody else, even another Republican, let's say you take a weak Republican, they would say, that's all right. But because they have Trump derangement syndrome, they're sick people. There's something wrong with them. But every time I knock out a boat, we save 25,000 American lives. It's very simple. And what's happening is they're having a hard time employment-wise. They can't get anybody. And we just knocked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant or a big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard. But drugs are down over 97%. Can you believe it?
That is, you have done a miracle for all Americans.
Did you hear him say there, have you heard or have you seen or heard about it? Have you read about it? No one had read about it. No one had heard about it because it wasn't in the news, because it wasn't being reported on, because it was a covert operation that Donald Trump just let the world know about in a slip. Yeah. And yesterday, when he was on the portico or whatever out at Mar-a-Lago, welcoming Bibi Netanyahu, the administrator of a genocide against the Palestinian people, he was asked a specific question by a reporter about this. Hey, you said this during the radio interview. You want to tell us a little bit more about this explosion? And that's when he knows that he stepped on his dick, so to speak, on the day after Christmas. He knows he breached operational security and put everybody's life in danger, and our sources and methods and all the things that these national security types want to talk about. So he tries to act like, oh, no. Well, it doesn't matter who did it, which just leads to more questions.
Yep. Can you say more about the explosion in Venezuela that you mentioned in the radio interview? Did the military do that? Can you share more details about
Well, it doesn't matter, but there was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs. So we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
Is that the only strike that the U.S. has done?
I don't want to comment.
Was that the military? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it was. It doesn't matter what entity within the United States did it. Don't ask that question. It does not matter if it was the military. We know Donald Trump to be a bad liar, but this is one of the worst lies we've ever witnessed from Donald Trump. Why? Well, first of all, it absolutely matters whether it's the military, because it goes to the intent and the methods being used to see the agenda of Donald Trump relative to Venezuela come to fruition. He calls it a major explosion. And then I can't get over it was an implementation area. That's where they implement. Wait a minute. Are you sure, Donald Trump, that the implementation area is where they implement? I thought it would be at the destruction area where they implement. Or maybe it's the implementation area where they destroy. Wait, I'm very confused. Tell us again about what happens at the implementation area. So look, as somebody who served in the military for years in the Marine Corps, OPSEC is something that it's ingrained in you. This is one of the problems with having someone who doesn't take their job seriously. He doesn't do it well, to be sure, but he doesn't even take it seriously. He's famously somebody who sleeps through his CIA briefings, his national security briefings that are supposed to be a daily thing. They've had to practically make coloring books out of his briefing documents or mention his name in them multiple times to get him to pay attention. Because Donald Trump doesn't care. He is unmoored by the responsibilities of a normal president who cares about the well-being, the welfare, the very lives of Americans. He wants all the accolades and the credit. I'm the commander-in-chief. I'm a big, strong, tough guy. But he doesn't want to do the actual work of keeping your mouth closed and not outing an operation run by one of our many alphabet organizations, whether it be CIA or, some other outfit. But this certainly wasn't the military. Otherwise, he would have said, yes, this is the military. They did a great job. My troops, my country, my republic. He would have said that. The fact that he didn't tells you every single thing that you need to know. And where are the Republicans? The national security hawks, the warmongers. Where are they? Like, hey, slow your roll, Mr. President. Please keep our special operators safe. Please. None of that. Why would they cross the dear leader, even at the benefit of our intelligence officials and our military? But it doesn't matter whether it's the military. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we're going to keep following this story. This is going to blow up. This is going to be a story that you're going to be hearing about over the course of the next few days, because questions are still going to be rolling in because he's not answering them sufficiently or at all. So what do you think? Let's talk about this in the comments. You can comment below, whether on Facebook or YouTube. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576 4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Maybe you heard or you read about it. Thanks, Mr. President. Got hurt.
They are arresting American citizens and detaining them. There is no question about that.
It's a factual matter that American citizens have been caught up in this stuff. That has happened. So let's just leave that there.
Scott Jennings should not be being paid by CNN to be an expert, an analyzer of the news, any measure of importance that CNN feels his opinion holds is just bullshit. Yesterday, I try not to talk about Scott Jennings because I think that he does not offer anything. But I do believe it's important to highlight when media outlets are dropping the ball and putting this dipshit on who is just going to be a Trump sycophant, a bootlicker, someone who used to be critical of Donald Trump, who's now totally in the camp of Donald Trump, someone who used to correctly identify the clear and present danger that Donald Trump posed to the country, is now just... It doesn't matter. I don't care. Donald Trump can do whatever he wants. I don't go to Donald Trump for my kids to be moral, except you do when you want all the books banned, Scott Jennings. But I got 3 clips for you that really, I want to drill down and hopefully send a message to some of the people over at the CNN that, yeah, this might be in the short term good for ratings and people watching the show, the battle royale on Abby Phillips' show every night. But this is bad for the dialogue. This is bad for deliverance, the delivery of facts, not the deliverance of facts. So we know they're not going to give any deliverance to facts. So let's do this. Let's begin with this right here. Them talking about morality and who they do or don't go to for Donald Trump. About Scott Jennings saying, well, I don't go to politicians to tell me what's right or wrong. Except you do because you want the Christian narrative, your particular flavor of Christianity, to rule us all. And that has everything to do with what's right or wrong for children and otherwise, Scott.
For the country. And for us to normalize this is really out of hand. And as a man I think of as a dad, as somebody who talked about Christ, I can't believe that you think that this is okay.
You want me to tell you that politics ain't beanbag, Jamal?
No, I want you to tell me that Donald Trump is not a great role model for America's children, and we should be looking for somewhere else to look for that.
Look, he participates in our political culture in a very, very strong way. And when people come out against him, he comes out against them. And you work for Kamala Harris, and I've never heard her say a kind word about Donald Trump or any Republican much. So politics is a rough and tumble business. That I will admit.
You're from the South. I mean,
do I expect Donald Trump to teach my children anything and everything? No, I'll take care of that. He can take care of the politics. I'll take care of my kids. If you need politicians to tell your kids right from wrong, that's your business.
So if he doesn't need politicians to tell his kids what's right or wrong, why is he okay with the book bans? Why is he okay with telling families what kind of medical care their children, their transgender kids can have? Why does he care about all of the morality, social engineering of the Republican Party, the culture war that rages on? That's Donald Trump's bread and butter. So right now, he doesn't need it until it's back in the headlines right around election time when they spark up all the culture war engines. That's when it starts mattering. The other thing that he's never going to cross is Donald Trump and the naming of everything all around the city. From the Donald Trump Institute of Peace as he bombs foreign countries. He's bombing Nigeria. He's setting off explosions in Venezuela. He's without due process executing people on the high seas. But he got his soccer peace prize, so, everything's good. But he's renaming the Kennedy Center. He's renaming the Institute of Peace. He's hanging banners all over the city with his stupid mug on them. No critique from Scott Jennings on this because he wants the dictator action. He's here for it. He benefits from Donald Trump being president. His name is in the mouths and the ears of millions of Americans. He's far more famous now than he ever has been, making more money now than he ever has been. Why would he care if Donald Trump, acting as a dictator, puts his names on things?
But inherently, for these artists, they're being invited to Washington to play for people. There'll be probably people of both parties, non-parties in the building. And I don't know why you would agree to do it in the first place if you had such a, political opposition to the administration.
Well,
in
Trump
power.
slapped his name on the outside of the
But
building.
so what? Right.
That's a memorial to President Kennedy.
He was already the chair of the board.
And
he's already the
and has
president of the United
inserted
States.
himself and on politics in virtually everything that's coming out of the Kennedy.
But he's not forcing
that
the
has
artists.
happened.
He's not forcing the artists to engage in any political speech or any political acts. They're just there to play music. So what would be political about playing your song?
So what? Says Scott Jennings. So what that Donald Trump, a living president, is going to break the law and put his face on our money while he's not only still alive, but still president of the United States? Who cares? So what? So what, as long as the United States is transformed into a white ethno-state, right, Scott? As long as the objective is seen, we don't care about all the extraneous other things. Who cares about that? As long as lives are destroyed and black and brown people know their spot, they know where they stand in this country. As long as that gets done, who cares what Donald Trump does the rest of it? Right, Scott? And speaking of the white ethno-state and the kidnapping of citizens, or certainly citizens are being wrapped up, or being arrested, being detained, some are being deported from the country. He denies it, but this is ultimately where this goes, because the Donald Trump administration and anyone who makes excuses for Donald Trump is carrying water for white supremacy. I believe Scott Jennings is a white supremacist himself. I believe he is a vile, disgusting racist himself, but I'll leave it to him to tell you that what you're seeing in the streets relative to the abuse of brown people in this country isn't actually happening.
What Americans were promised was that the worst of the worst, that really dangerous people, not American citizens, not people who are not violent.
They are not
That's why
deporting
the
American citizens. Can you at least admit that?
They are arresting American citizens and detaining them. There is no question about that. I know.
Who has been arrested?
I know
What
American citizens who have been detained and arrested. It's a fact.
There is currently a lawsuit by an American citizen who was detained for
One?
days. There are several of them. I'm just saying.
One too
I
many?
know individuals.
Are you
If you were
Should we
arrested,
shut down all immigration enforcement over one mistake?
I'm just saying,
If
Scott,
I granted you one mistake, would you shut down all immigration enforcement?
It's not one mistake. It's a factual matter that American citizens have been caught up in this stuff. That has happened. So let's just leave that there. Ahead.
You see how that shifted? You see how the goalpost moved? It's not happening. In that short clip, he went from it is not happening at all, name one. They go, it's happening. It's happening all over the place. And then he goes, oh, so because it's happening, should we stop everything because it's happening? Seconds before you said it wasn't happening. Now you're saying, should we stop everything because it is happening, Scott? You see why I say you should not be paid by CNN or anybody for that matter for your opinions? You're stupid and you're clumsy in your distraction of the point at hand. Your distraction from the autocratic nature of Donald Trump. So I guess, look, we'll wrap it up with this. You could pick your reason why Scott Jennings should not be being paid by a major media outlet to provide factual, accurate analysis of the current events of the day. You make your pick, whether it be that he's wrong about everything, he's a liar about everything, or in the moment, he shifts the goalposts to make his argument something different than it was 5 seconds ago. You make your choice. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let's talk about this. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you. If you feel the same way, even in a minor way, and you'd like to support this work, please consider doing so. The best way, because we've been on Patreon for a long time, we're grandfathered in to the old way that they do things. We get the vast majority of your donation. Patreon is the place, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. As an alternative, they take way more, like 25% more of your money, or even 30% more. go to click join on the YouTube video. I was doing the math in my head, and I'm terrible at math. It really has short-circuited me. Click the join button below this video on YouTube or just on my channel in general and become a channel member. Again, $2 a month. You can help produce this content. Well, Democrats need to get on it and ensure that they capitalize on this moment with this group of voters that's like, Donald Trump's a piece of shit. So when Donald Trump came on the scene, for a long time, I've been talking about this on my podcast before he was even on YouTube. We talked about it, that I felt it dangerous what Donald Trump was normalizing in the country, in the culture, in our society. And that the children who, when he first came down the escalator in 2015, let's say you were just coming in to being interested in politics, you're 12 years old or so. I was a little younger than that when I started being interested in politics, but let's say that's the age, 12. Well, now, that was 2015. Now it's 2025, 2026. You're 22, 23 years old. So your entire formative years of understanding how politics works were shaped by how Donald Trump behaves and operates. And that is a bastardization of the entire history of United States politics. It is normalizing fascism and rampant rank cruelty. And they think that's normal now. So during the election in 2024, when Gen Z young men were breaking for Donald Trump at alarming rates, it was just that. It was alarming. It was shocking. It was something to worry about. Thankfully, though, some polling has been done, and it appears Donald Trump is losing his grip on younger men who are Gen Z. This is the headline from The Independent. Gen Z men are moving away from MAGA in droves, polls show. Economic concerns and growing disenchantment with both parties is draining support for Trump among Gen Z young men, a key block of support during the 2024 election. And it was. Donald Trump, he was, year over year, election over election, did far better with younger voters than he did the previous time. And the reason he did, one of the reasons, there's not one particular reason, is because he went into those spaces and did long, meandering podcasts with these dipshit Gen Z influencers. And in turn, their audiences saw Donald Trump as a viable option. They listened to the things that he promised, that he would make their lives better, that the economy would improve under him, that he's a strong man, that only I can fix it kind of an attitude. And now that he's in there, and now that they're adults, now that they're sentient beings who can analyze and see, remember the promises that were made versus what actually is taking place right now, they're unhappy. They're turning away from Donald Trump. I mean, the worst case scenario would be that they just bow out of politics altogether and don't vote. The better scenario would be for them to see the writing on the wall, the lay of the land, the pick your metaphor about a car on the road, and figure out that this isn't the way forward. Donald Trump lied to me. He bamboozled all of us, and we made a mistake in voting. And now we need to look at the other party, the only other party in the country, in our system that has any power to make anything change. And they need to start voting Democrat. This is from The Independent again. Male Gen Z voters are breaking with Donald Trump and the Republican Party at large. Recent polls show less than a year after, the same cohort defied convention and made a surprise shift right, helping Trump win the 2024 election. Taken with wider polling suggesting Democrats will lead in the midterms, the findings on young men spell serious trouble for the Republican Party in 2026. Now, before I move on here and read a few more paragraphs, this is a problem because we're making a prediction here. Just wait for what the Republican Party is going to start doing to win back these younger voters. They're going to lean even harder into racism and misogyny. And it's in an effort to appeal to what they think is the disaffected youth, this young white man who they feel they can convince is all your troubles, young man, all your troubles is because of Somalis in Minneapolis, or the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, where they're eating the pets, they're eating the cats and the dogs. They want to normalize white supremacy in the minds of these young men who have an unsophisticated, in some cases, view and understanding of how things work, the causal relationships between policy and an outcome that's going to impact your life. Let's continue here with The Independent. President Trump's approval rating stands at 32% among 18 to 29-year-olds, and young men preferred Democratic control of Congress by a 12% margin, according to a recently released Harvard Youth poll, which was conducted last month. These trends took place against a larger dissatisfaction with the parties and the president, the poll found, in which neither Trump nor the Democrats nor the Republicans could claim higher than a 1/3 approval rating, though Democratic support is trending up and GOP approval is trending down since the spring. Quote, young Americans are sending a clear message. The system and institutions meant to support them no longer feel stable, fair, or responsive to this generation, John Della Volpe, director of polling at Harvard Institute of Politics, said in a release alongside the findings. Their trust in democracy, the economy, and even each other is fraying, not because they are disengaged, but because they feel unheard and unprotected in a moment of profound uncertainty. Young Gen Z men, those born between 2002 and 2007, may be even more anti-Trump, according to October research from YouGov and the Young Men's Research Project, a potential sign that their time living through the social upheavals of the COVID pandemic and not being politically aware during the first Trump administration may be shaping their experience. And that's exactly what I just talked about. They're not politically aware. They're not adult enough to understand taxes and having a job and holding down responsibilities. Now that they're adults, the warping of their brains relative to how they understand politics is starting to become apparent. That would be my take. The research found that majorities of Gen Z men overall opposed pieces of the Trump agenda, such as ongoing ICE crackdowns, eliminating vaccine requirements, and unilaterally firing federal workers, but that younger Gen Z members were even more opposed. Quote, odds are they were not aware of just how unstable everything felt during that first administration. Charlie Sigber, the author of the report, told Vox, so they would feel buyer's remorse. The stirrings among Gen Z young men could be part of a larger youth turn against Trump. This fall, Yale Youth poll found that young voters overwhelmingly disapprove of the president's job performance, a flip from their spring 2025 measure. When the aperture widens to include millennials, the disapproval is even more stark. I will say this before I read this final paragraph. The difference between Gen Z and millennial is vast. Millennials, older millennials are like in their 40s. Millennials doesn't mean young kids. All of the media reporting about how restaurants are closing because millennials don't want to go do whatever is really not doing you a service if you don't understand exactly how old millennials are. They are well into adulthood, almost to middle age. Finally, here we'll end it. Nearly 60% of this combined group disapproves of how Trump is doing in office, according to a recently published University of Chicago poll conducted through November. A 6-point drop in his favorability compared to the same survey last year. So this is good news. What we need to get on the stick about as a party, as a group of people who want progress for this country, is to pressure Democrats in strategy, in people who are actually putting forward bills and putting forth policy to do something for this group of people who feel so disaffected. That as Donald Trump is ending student loans and making higher education an unattainable thing unless you're a child of privilege, the Democrats need to come up with some policies that are going to speak to this disaffected group of individuals for the betterment of all of us. It's not a handout. It's not a welfare thing. It's a way that we comport ourselves, the way we run our society, with the way we help those who need help to lift the rising tide lifts all boats kind of a thing, right? Well, Democrats need to get on it and ensure that they capitalize on this moment with this group of voters that's like, Donald Trump's a piece of shit who lied to us. So let's be the party that follows through on the things we say. What do you think? You can comment below.
I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago. I want someone who will close the border, which he has.
I know I'm bitching about the media today. I know I do it a lot. When you're independent and you don't answer to some corporate overlords with some agenda, you can't say certain things because of all the commercials you run. I don't operate like that. Many of the people, most of the people in my cohort, in my space, my colleagues on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of the other content provider sites, we don't answer. So when the mainstream media is bending over backwards to normalize white supremacist ideas and bigoted ideas and try to whitewash the pasts and the histories of people who are now starting to defy Donald Trump, it's concerning. And the New York Times might be the very worst about this. I talked the other day after the Vanity Fair piece where the Christopher Anderson, the photographer, took pictures of all of the MAGA idiots, and they were unfiltered. They were raw, just like he's done with Obama and Biden and politicians for decades. And Lulu Navarro, who works for the New York Times, she tweeted this little ditty here. "This picture is very unkind," says Lulu Navarro. Feigning decency. Can we all just get along? Can we not just come together and see past our differences? Even though those differences, they surround whether or not people have the right to exist or not. So Lulu Navarro is virtue signaling how kind and decent she is, while having Megyn Kelly on to talk about bigotry and how she wants to know. She doesn't care about Donald Trump sexually assaulting and abusing women as long as her kid is protected from the group that she wants to demonize and abuse. And I guess that's not very unkind for Lulu Navarro. But the New York Times largely is, I'm going to play that clip in a second. The New York Times is largely doing this at a breakneck pace right now. They just did this entire feature on Marjorie Taylor Greene entitled, "I Was Just So Naive," inside Marjorie Taylor Greene's break with Trump, how the Georgia congresswoman went from the president's loudest cheerleader to his loudest Republican critic. And it is a long, long article that talks with and about Marjorie Taylor Greene. The problem lies in the fact that just because she is a Trump opponent now, or ostensibly is one, for now she is, she's still a bigot. She's still a danger. She still wants to abuse trans children. And this maybe is where the rubber hits the road for the New York Times and their appeal to make this a normal position. That children, here, let me take a side here. Not take a side. Let me do an aside. Let me take a little offshoot here. Remember when you were a kid, when you were in junior high or elementary school and hormones are going and you're insecure and you think everybody's looking at you and all of the things that all of us go through as children. Imagine if you are gay or if you are trans. Many of you don't have to because you are. When you are normative in our society, when you are what is considered ideal or the way things should be or normal, as a white boy in a white state, in a tiny white town, it was still hard. I can't imagine compounding societal pressures and shame onto that already vulnerable position. But Republicans, they want to do it. They want to harm trans kids. Kids that they think are just confused, but they don't mind. They're not just confused, by the way, but they say, oh, they're just confused. So why don't we punish them? Why don't we pour hot coal on their head, pour hot oil in their ear? Why don't we just make their life as miserable as we possibly can? And the New York Times is here to put that forward as an actual eventuality, as an actual legitimate option. This is one paragraph from this long article about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then we're going to get to that Megyn Kelly clip. Greene had other reservations about the administration's agenda. While she was initially supportive of Trump's tariffs, she became fretful when carpet and flooring companies in her district said they were now less able to procure certain chemicals that were available only overseas. She complained that first of all, this is why you don't elect stupid people who can't see what the obvious ramifications of a tariff policy like Donald Trump, the one he implemented, that wasn't going to have downstream implications for business. If you didn't see that coming, you shouldn't be in office because you're a dumb shit. First of all, Marge. And then let's finish here. She complained that the hundreds of thousands of college student visas being issued by the administration to Chinese nationals gave them an unfair leg up on American students. And though Trump campaigned on ending transgender medical care for children, as president, she says, he offered little support to Greene's bill, the Protect Children's Innocence Act, which would do exactly that. Only when Greene threatened to oppose the continuing resolution in September to fund the government did the House Majority Leader, Steve Scalise, promise to bring her bill to the floor for a vote. So she's still a bigot. She's still a vile, dangerous person for citizens of the country, for inhabitants of this country. She is still the culture warrior she always was. But because Donald Trump turned on her, now she's a critic. And they want to normalize this. And it seems the fulcrum, the tipping point seems to be the transgender issue, LGBTQ rights, bigotry in general. And here's Megyn Kelly, again, being platformed, normalized, being unkind Lulu Navarro on Lulu Navarro's New York Times show. Watch this.
My own personal opinion is most of the allegations against him are much more complicated than the mainstream media would have you believe. And I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. Okay. Years ago when he was a celebrity, and it is what it is. That's the past. But it's just about so much more than that. We are talking about how many people dying at the southern border because of the invasion that we've suffered under Joe Biden. We're talking about Laken Riley, whose killer was let in under Biden. We put him on a taxpayer flight down to Georgia where he murdered her. I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago. I want someone who will close the border, which he has. I want someone who will keep boys out of my daughter's sports, which he has. I want someone who will stand up to the insane DEI policies so that white kids will stop hearing in school that they're born with some original sin from which they cannot recover, which he has.
So Megyn Kelly doesn't care that Donald Trump abuses and assaults women as long as he abuses other women that she perceives as a threat against her daughter, who will eventually be a woman. Did I get that right? As long as Megyn Kelly's progeny are protected and not abused or raped or assaulted by Donald Trump, she doesn't care if he does it to other women. Maybe that's more plainly stated. Because this is all about me. This is all about don't hurt me. If you hurt other people, fine. They're other. That's the out group. I don't care about them. I don't care that Donald Trump is an adjudicated sexual assaulter of a woman. I don't care that there are dozens, plural, dozens of women who have accused him of up to and including rape. That there are children, women who have brought lawsuits against Donald Trump for a behavior, for abuse that they suffered at the hands of Donald Trump when they were children, when they were 13 years old. Google Donald Trump, Katie Johnson. A lawsuit that went away because she feared for her life because of violent, unhinged Trump supporters. Megyn Kelly doesn't give a shit about that. Who cares? As long as she gets to see trans people tread upon, harmed, put in danger, threatened, fearing for their life. She wants them to be so fearful they go back into the shadows. And the New York Times seems pretty happy with platforming this idea, normalizing this idea, giving credibility to bigotry, to hatred. But this is very unkind. I was debating whether I was going to say F you to Lulu NYT, but I'll save it. What do you think? I do invite you to this conversation. A lot of people are criticizing me for being an opponent, a critic of Marjorie Taylor Greene. They think just because she is right now talking about Donald Trump in the way they want her to, that she is some kind of an ally. And trust me when I say she is not. She is an enemy. She's an enemy of the Constitution. She is an enemy of equality. She is an enemy of diversity. Ugh. Come on, let's all get it together, screw our heads on straight, and look at the world through reality's lens here. All right, I'm done. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for engaging with the content. You can have a conversation in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please consider supporting the work. You can go get some merch at dollemore.com. We sell stickers and mugs and t-shirts with logos, not just Dollemore Daily, but also Fight Poverty, Not the Poor. Poverty is a policy choice. All kinds of messages that are activist in nature. When you go out to a protest, you can wear them. Also conversation starters, so you convince somebody to start thinking the right way. Anyway, I love and appreciate you again. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another. President Trump is a man of the people, and he meets more Americans and shakes their hands on a daily basis than any other president in history. These people. Welcome to this post-holiday Dollemore Daily. If you're just joining us here and have no idea who the hell I am, my name's Jesse Dollemore. Let's talk about a number of different things today, but first and foremost, let's talk about the health of the current president of the United States, the failing health of the current president of the United States, our nearly octogenarian, withering Donald Trump. You know, some would maybe want to use the exact words of that aforementioned president to say that Donald Trump is a dead man walking. Using his own words, how could I get a knock on my door from the Secret Service if I'm just saying the same things that Donald Trump says? The same things that Donald Trump said about Stephen Colbert on Christmas Eve. Donald Trump is a dead man walking, and someone should put him to sleep now. It would be the humanitarian thing to do. Over the weekend, Donald Trump gave his, just yesterday, Donald Trump gave his little press conference with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of the besieged president of Ukraine. And in the lead up to the meetings and during the press conference, you could see that it's not just Donald Trump's right hand that is haphazardly and awkwardly and ham-fistedly covered in makeup. It's like they put makeup on his hand and then they slap a bandage on and they put more makeup on top of that bandage. And the White House has said for a long time that, just because Donald Trump is a man of the people, he's just shaking all the hands all the time. That's why his hand is so bruised. It has nothing to do with his failing health. It has nothing to do with the dead man walking nature of Donald Trump. That excuse really falls flat after yesterday when it appears there are now bruises on his non-hand-shaken hand, on his non-dominant hand, because Donald Trump is right-handed. Donald Trump writes with his right hand. He signs executive orders with his right hand. His fascist proclamations, they are made official using his right hand. This is a headline from the Daily Beast. Donald Trump's bruises spread in blow to Leavitt's handshake claim. The White House has repeatedly blamed the bruising on the president's hand on frequent handshaking. President Donald Trump slathered a fresh coat of makeup on his right hand for another round of peace talks with Ukraine on Sunday, but it was his other hand that drew attention. Trump, 79, welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to his Mar-a-Lago estate as he continues to chase down an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, which he promised to end on his first day back in office. I always like to give a little bit more drilling down on that, not just the first day. He didn't say, oh yeah, on day one, like kind of metaphorically that we're going to get it done very quickly. Donald Trump said within 24 hours of even being elected, he would end the war. Not just, for first day, we're going to get it done real quick. Here we are, a year into his presidency. In just 22 days or so, it'll be a full year, 365 days that he's been president, and the war rages on. Hospitals continue to be bombarded with Russian munitions. Pregnant Ukrainian women are being murdered by Vladimir Putin, and Donald Trump looks on with his bruised hands doing nothing. The mismatched concealer on Trump's hand was once again evident as he took questions from reporters. When reached for comment by the Daily Beast, White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt reverted to a statement she has been reusing since February. Quote, President Trump is a man of the people. When I said the man of the people thing earlier, I was being euphemistic. I was being the joke. I had no idea that was the actual statement, the actual excuse given for Donald Trump's broken hands, his dead man walking hands. President Trump is a man of the people, and he meets more Americans and shakes their hands on a daily basis than any other president in history. These people, are they serious? His commitment is unwavering, and he proves that every single day, she said. Leavitt previously attributed the persistent bruising to, quote, minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as a part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. But the handshake defense became a head-scratcher for many social media users after Trump's left hand began showing discoloration as well. Just days ago, on Christmas Eve, the now familiar makeup on Trump's right hand was coupled with bluish discoloration on the left, which appeared to persist into Sunday afternoon. The bruising on Trump's left hand also stood out earlier this month when he slung the inaugural Soccer Peace Prize medal around his own neck. Look, I'm laughing because, I relish the moment when I wake up and we are alerted to breaking news, Donald Trump died in his sleep. There are a number of different reasons why this is very serious. There's a number of different reasons why we are owed the information that we require about the president's health. How can we have a continuity of government and expectation of good governance, of responsible governance and leadership if we don't know the health of the man that we have seen fit to elect to that high office? The fact that they're lying is alarming, because if it was just, look, he's old, he's got venous insufficiency, whatever. He has blood tests to make sure that he's healthy, and it bruises his old skin. That's all they have to say, if that's all it is. The fact that they're lying, the fact that they're saying it's handshaking when it's clearly not, is a problem, because it only leads us to think there must be something far more serious afoot if they are this willing to lie and cover up for what is actually taking place. Donald Trump very well could be on his deathbed. We know he can't stay awake for more than 5 minutes during meetings where people are talking directly to him. He can't keep his... What? Oh, are we in a meeting in the White House? Am I the president of the United States? Where am I? Who am I? But it was sleepy Joe Biden. It was forgetful Joe Biden right? Joe Biden, who, by the way, is still out there giving speeches and meeting and having public appearances. He's not just hidden away because his dementia is so bad. But that is the case. The whataboutism, the disease of whataboutism is absolutely rampant. It is an epidemic, a pandemic of whataboutism in the Republican Party. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about this. I believe this is a very important story. I believe it's a very serious story that impacts all of us, globally even. If you're watching this from the United Kingdom or Canada, Australia, I know I've got a larger international audience, certainly than I used to. This impacts you as well. You know, who the president is important to the world. Unfortunately, we as Americans have an outsized footprint of influence on the global stage. It lessens day by day as Donald Trump ruins everything. But I'd love your opinion. You can comment below.
Because what I believe is America's last best hope of mankind. And if there's anything I can do to forward the mission of our founding fathers, whose love of freedom and belief in the rights of man abides in my heart.
Look at this. I set up a segue for myself from one story to the next. Speaking of Stephen Colbert being a dead man walking, Colbert on Christmas Eve, I think it was the 23rd, was on Slate. They had like a political gab fest, I think is what they call it, where Stephen Colbert and John Dickerson, formerly of CBS, and a couple of other, I think, Slate, probably writers, were there on a panel on a stage. And Stephen Colbert was asked a bunch of questions. They had a whole just political back and forth talk. But there was one moment in this particular political gab, whatever we call this, the panel, where Stephen Colbert was asked a question. Apparently they went to the audience and everybody submitted questions. And one of the most asked questions was, is Stephen Colbert going to run for president? What does he think about running for president of the United States? Now, there's a host of reasons why I think this is a bad idea. There's also a few reasons why I think it might be a good idea. But he gave a pretty succinct answer, a pretty clear answer, a pretty concise answer. But I'm debating whether I should give some analysis now or wait until the end. Let me say this. For me, the overarching reason that I would say no, please do not run for office is kind of a personal one. So if you're listening, Stephen, I don't want to be disappointed by what Stephen Colbert would be as president of the United States. I hold him up in my mind as some kind of a progressive thought leader, a humanist, and I don't want to be disappointed. Politicians invariably are going to disappoint you, and I'd rather hold Stephen Colbert up on whatever kind of pedestal he's on for me as someone who is a good and decent man who thoroughly cares about the well-being of Americans. I wouldn't want him to get in there and then we learn he doesn't give a shit about health care for all. He doesn't care about Medicare for all. He doesn't care about actually improving the lives of hardworking poor people in America. So I don't want to be bummed out by what he might end up being. You know, I've been disappointed by many a politician who I've looked into the eyes of during interviews and thought, yeah, this person is the real deal. And then only to find out that they are not. Anyway, here is Stephen Colbert's answer. It's a little longer than the clips I normally play. It's about 3 minutes and about roughly 3 minutes, but you'll see up in the corner of the video, whatever side it's on, we run a timer on all the clips so you know how far to go if you've already seen it or if you've seen enough and you just want to skip ahead. Let's watch this together and then talk about it on the other side.
This leads to a question that so many people submitted.
Yes.
We'll give it to Eric Coyote, considering your special guest. Should Stephen Colbert run for president in 2028?
And who are you asking that of?
I'm asking that. I mean, I could start. We could start with us and then go to him. Should Stephen Colbert run for president?
You know my answer on this.
It's so miserable to
Why
run
would
for
you do that?
president.
Why would you do that to him?
Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely, I should not run for president. I understand why you'd want me to. But I mean, that is something, David, and everyone here tonight, that is something I'm going to have to discuss, obviously, with my faith leader and my family to see if once my service on The Late Show ends in May, if I can be of some greater service to this nation that I love so much. Because what I believe is America's the last best hope of mankind, and if there's anything I can do to forward the mission of our founding fathers, whose love of freedom and belief in the rights of man abides in my heart, like the very blood in my veins and the strength in my arms, why, who am I to say that I should run? But if I hear the call, obviously, of the Lord, please sit down. And please sit down.
All right.
You did run once.
I ran twice.
Oh.
I ran in 2007, I ran in 2012. I ran both times. I ran as President of the United States of South Carolina, because I only ran in South Carolina. And they got mad. Everybody, Democrats more than Republicans, I'll tell you that. They got super mad at me, yeah.
I was at your event with Herman Cain.
Oh, that was in 2012.
Yeah.
That was the Super PAC run, yeah.
Yeah, massive outdoor event, well attended.
7,000 people, absolutely beautiful at College of Charleston. It was beautiful. And Herman Cain, he was fun. We closed the rally by singing the Pokemon song. Gotta catch 'em all.
Well, just to be serious, we've had a bunch of people who want to be president on the podcast before. We had Rahm Emanuel a few weeks ago. We've had Wes Moore. We had Mitch Daniels.
Is Wes said he's going to run?
I don't know, but he clearly wants to be president. I would pick you over any of them.
Oh, wow.
I would pick you over any of them.
Well, there it
in
is.
A second. Yeah.
I just got the plot. I got the plot.
I'm the dictator. I'm the dictator.
Right? You could order it, David.
You could just
order it
declare
to
me
happen.
president.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot there that I really like. Who am I to say that I should run? But if I get a call from the Lord, or whatever, he's a pretty devout religious guy. But I like the humility in that statement. Who am I to say that I should run? In the founding of our country, during our founding period, George Washington, people sought him to run for office. It was considered untoward or arrogant or ungentlemanly to seek the office of president. You have to be there, I think, just generally as an umbrella, there's got to be something a little off with you if you want to be president of the United States. It is an impossible job, and if you think that you are mighty and smart enough to do the job, it's telling about what goes on in somebody's head. But I do not think that Stephen Colbert should run for office. If he were to run and if he got through the primary process, I would certainly vote for him, as I voted for Kamala Harris, even though she wasn't my first choice in 2020 or even in 2024. I believe we need true progressivism moving forward, not this lurch to the right in an effort to win back Trump voters or appeal to conservatives. We've seen time and time and time again that what works, even in moderate to conservative districts, is a clear voice about projecting, about putting forward progressive policies, about making the lives of hardworking Americans better, doing something about income inequality in this country, setting up a tax structure, unlike what Gavin Newsom's trying to do right now, working against the 1% billionaire tax in California. We need people who are going to make the rich pay their fair share. They have an outsized amount of influence in this country. They luxuriate in that. with all of their money, all of their not paying taxes, all of the tax cuts from Donald Trump, all of the numerous ways that they can avoid paying taxes through taking loans and all of the things that we've learned over the course of all of the reporting from ProPublica and other outlets about the effective tax rate that billionaires pay, which is virtually nothing. Some years it is nothing. There have been many years that Donald Trump has paid zero income tax. Elon Musk, zero income tax. The rest of these ghouls, zero. Yet I'm going to move out of the state if you... Anyway, and now I'm off the Stephen Colbert thing, but I'd love your opinion. What do you think? Where am I wrong? Should Stephen Colbert run for president of the United States? I think it is a question. I think there's still going to be some pressure on him. So you can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Ultimately, I do believe that Stephen Colbert will have the last word over Donald Trump, especially in who's the actual dead man walking race.
Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine.
Donald Trump is a Russian asset. Maybe wittingly, maybe unwittingly. Certainly, he's a propaganda asset. And it's debatable. It's possible that he's an intelligence asset as well. And I mean, intelligence asset, I mean, it very well could be that he is just feeding intelligence, military intelligence, global intelligence gathering intelligence type of stuff to Vladimir Putin willingly, like as treason, as being a traitor to the country. But it's far more likely, more probable that Donald Trump, because he's a braggart, because he wants to let everybody know he knows all the secrets, even though we know he knows all the secrets because he's president of the United States, he just feels bad about himself. So he wants to puff himself up like, I'm a big man who has all the knowledge. And he's very likely on these 2.5 hour phone calls with Vladimir Putin, just spilling the beans about the secret sauce of our intelligence gathering, about our military capabilities, about the technology that we use. Absolutely. Donald Trump is a Russian asset, whether willing or unwilling. And this was no more clear yesterday than any other day that he's been in power, when he sat shoulder to shoulder with Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking about the peace negotiations, the ceasefire negotiations, the negotiations to end the conflict in Ukraine that was brought upon them by Vladimir Putin's invasion. His firebombing of hospitals, the murder of pregnant women and children in Ukraine. And Donald Trump, we're going to start with this because it's just batshit crazy, of course. Donald Trump spills into the talk about it by saying this war would have never happened. This war that Donald Trump promised he would end within 24 hours, it would have never happened hadn't the election been stolen from him in 2020, a thing that most certainly did not happen. And if it had happened, if it did happen, we would be bombarded with all of the evidence laid out. But instead, it's, well, we're going to tell you, we're going to show you the evidence. Give me 2 weeks, give me a month. As soon as we get this case, there's going to all the evidence. There's no evidence. It's just a claim. It's just a lie at this point. Here is Donald Trump making this thing, the war, the murder, the unjust invasion of Ukraine, making it about himself.
And a lot of very brave people, a lot of people that are dead right now, unfortunately, because I've said, and nobody's disputed it, that if the election weren't rigged and stolen, 2020, you wouldn't have had this war. It would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Never was even thought to happen. And I spoke with President Putin. I got along with him very well, despite the Russia hoax, which was a total hoax. He used to say, what is going on over there? But it was a total hoax, as he knew and as I knew. But I spoke to him, and we'd talk about Ukraine. I've said it before. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything about it. He didn't do anything about it until I was gone, and then a lot of really bad statements were made by people by a lot of people, I guess, but by a certain president that we had who was a disaster. Yes.
You've said it, and nobody's disputed it. That if the election weren't rigged and stolen in 2020, you would have you wouldn't have had this war. You've said that, and nobody's disputed it. What alternate reality does Donald Trump craft for himself? Because he lives in a fucking fantasy land if he thinks nobody has disputed, one, the claim of the stolen election, the big lie that he has promulgated since 2020. That was a setup that they started saying if we lose, it's because it was rigged months before the actual election happened. It was a setup. Steve Bannon has said it's a setup. Donald Trump has tripped over his sizable ego many times, admitting that it wasn't stolen, but that actually it was stolen. It's nonsense. And Donald Trump wants to make this thing too about himself, about his grievances. I have two other clips, and they get successively worse for Donald Trump, where he really shows his hand as a Russian asset. In this first one, and these two clips bleed together. This was toward the end of the press conference, where he's trying to explain to the press, standing next to the man who is the leader of a nation who is that his citizens are under attack, literal attack. Pregnant women are being killed by Russian drones and missile strikes on hospitals, on maternity wards. And Donald Trump wants him to believe and everybody else to believe that Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine to succeed.
Are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when your conversation...
Who are you with?
Andrea Shalal with Reuters.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So in your conversation with President Putin, did you discuss what responsibility Russia will have for any kind of reconstruction of Ukraine post an agreement?
I did. They're going to be helping. Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once, it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices. So a lot of good things came out of that call today. But they were in the works for 2 weeks with Steve and with Jared and Marco and everybody.
This is no different than someone saying that Adolf Hitler wanted Europe to succeed. The man who brought death and destruction upon innocent people who did not ask for it. A war that was not justified. There was no first cause that could be looked upon as, yeah, well, that makes sense. And this is the president of the United States saying that the invader wants good things for those he invaded. That the murderer wants good things for his victims that he's murdered and the surviving families of those he has murdered. These are the words of a Russian agent disseminating Russian propaganda and doing it for free, apparently. Where that clip ended, this next clip picks up.
But they were in the works for 2 weeks with Steve and with Jared and Marco and everybody.
Did Russia agree, or did Putin agree to a ceasefire to allow a referendum to take place?
Not a ceasefire. And that's one of the points that we're working on right now. No, not a ceasefire. He feels that, look, they're fighting and to stop, and then if they have to start again, which is a possibility, he doesn't want to be in that position. I understand that position. The president feels strongly about that or something, but I think we're finding ways that we can get around that. But I understand President Putin from that standpoint. You have to understand the other side. And I'm on the side of peace. I'm on the side of stopping the war. So, but I think that's a problem that's going to get solved. Yeah.
No. No ceasefire. Listen, I understand Putin's bloodlust, says Donald Trump. I understand it. I understand Putin's bloodlust from that standpoint. I understand Putin's murderous impulses. I understand them. But yeah, no ceasefire. We don't want to box Putin in. Why would we want an end to this conflict that was supposed to have been ended 365 24-hour periods ago. Donald Trump is working in service to a foreign nation. He's an unregistered foreign agent, working for the benefit of the enemy of the United States of America in Vladimir Putin. Just like he did in 2018 in Helsinki, I believe it was 2018, where he stood shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin and took that man's side against the well-being and the welfare of the United States of America and the findings of multiple intelligence agencies who found that Russia absolutely interfered in the 2016 election. Well, it was Russia hoax. Not a hoax, dipshit. No, most certainly not a hoax. It has been verified by multiple intelligence agencies in the intelligence community of the United States. But because Donald Trump is a sycophantic ass lick to Vladimir Putin, who never has a cross word to say, he's not going to come against Russia. Republicans are here for this. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where media doesn't even ask for reaction from Republicans because they know what they're going to do. They're gonna put a blanket over their jerk off side. Oh, I can't show you me giving Donald Trump some pleasure. No, everything Donald Trump does is good. Too much? I know, Christmas just ended. Anyway, I guess I'll welcome you to this conversation that turned not so PG. What do you think? You can comment below this video on YouTube or Facebook. Why would they need to be monitoring the flights of reporters who are investigating the deal given to Jeffrey Epstein? Why? Very alarming. We're going to get to this. You know, a lot of people ask questions about what's in it for Donald Trump to try to cover up for this Jeffrey Epstein thing. And, this is all really new with this interference to try to get in between the release of the documents and now this wild effort to redact Donald Trump's name thousands of times in the files. Some things that are just salacious and insane and wild about Donald Trump wanting to, how long are we into the video here? Suck on nipples in front of Jeffrey Epstein with these victims. It is just bananas. There have been FBI tips that I talked about last week of Donald Trump bearing witness to the murder of a newborn. It is wild. And a lot of people think that the cover-up really just started, and that's not true. We're learning because of things like this, that this goes back all the way to 2019 when Donald Trump was president the first time, and using his DOJ, these people who have sworn an oath to protect and support the Constitution, that they're just working in service to the dear leader and following, harassing, monitoring the behavior of journalists who are covering this case, like Julie K. Brown. And if you don't know Julie K. Brown, we owe Julie K. Brown a debt that maybe can never be repaid relative to her reporting on this Jeffrey Epstein case way before it became what it is now. She works for the Miami Herald. She also has a Substack. I'm going to read a little bit from her Substack in this, but she is the expert on this. She blew wide open the attempt to give, not the attempt, they succeeded in giving Jeffrey Epstein an absolute sweetheart deal with U.S. attorney for that district in Florida, Acosta, who ended up being the Commerce Secretary, the Labor Secretary under Donald Trump. Weird quid pro quo. I'm going to cover for you. You're going to keep your mouth shut. I'm going to give you a cabinet position in an area that is not your expertise. You have no understanding of it whatsoever. You're a non-entity, a non-quantity, but we're going to elevate you to cabinet secretary. Very, very strange. I'm going to read this tweet to you from Julie K. Brown. Does somebody at the DOJ want to tell me why my American Airlines booking information and flights in July 2019 are part of the Epstein files attached to a grand jury subpoena? As the flight itinerary includes my maiden name, and I did book this flight, why was the DOJ monitoring me. And she includes this image that she found because she is an intrepid reporter and she is going through with a fine-tooth comb all of these documents. So much so that she spotted her own name and a flight that she booked for herself that she didn't end up taking. She even included this that is from the United Airline employee who runs the custodian fraud, whatever, that actually released this information to the Trump administration, to the Trump DOJ during the first term. Why would they need to be tracking, monitoring the flights of reporters who are investigating the deal given to Jeffrey Epstein by Alex Acosta? Why? Why would they need to do that? And also, they're not just monitoring her. They're not just following her. They're not just violating her Fourth Amendment right against unlawful search and seizures and her privacy being violated. It's also the victims. And so I guess the question would be, are they monitoring her or are they monitoring the victims? And then she happened to get roped into the whole sordid affair because she was going to see them. And that's what it was. Either way, it's a problem. Why would the Department of Justice be monitoring the behavior of victims of Jeffrey Epstein after having given Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal where he had work release from jail and could get out during the week and go do what he wanted to do after having raped and abused maybe hundreds of girls? This is from her Substack. I expected my name to be in the Epstein files since the Miami Herald published the series Perversion of Justice, an unsparing look at how Jeffrey Epstein got away with his crimes in South Florida. And that series led prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to open a criminal probe just days after the series ran in late November 2018. This is what I'm talking about. It's because of her effort, because of her expertise in this, because of her reporting, because of her absolute bulldog nature of not letting go of the truth and this story that led to another prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein after he was given the ridiculous deal by Alex Acosta, Donald Trump's hand-picked labor secretary. I would recommend that you go to the Miami Herald. Here's the screenshot for it. I'll link it below. Read this. Get your brain around the depravity of this story and everything that was involved, from government cover-ups to sweetheart deals for pedophiles. And now the DOJ is absolutely part of the cover-up. The literal redaction of thousands of times that Donald Trump is named in the Epstein files. And there are plenty of references to my stories in the Epstein files. But what I didn't expect to see was an American Airlines flight record from 2019 with my full name on them, including my maiden name, which I don't use professionally. It's an unusual name, so it's clear it's me. The document appears to be details of an itinerary for a series of flights I booked in July, just before the Southern District of New York and FBI arrested Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is her Substack. She's an independent journalist in this particular mode. So I'm not going to share I'm going to give you a brief outline, but I'm not going to read from something that's behind a paywall for somebody who is doing good work and actually should be rewarded by somebody going and paying to subscribe to their Substack. But suffice it to say, she says that this was a flight that was booked where she was going to interview the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, Maria and Annie Farmer. And she was unable to go. And because of their personal obligations, they were unable to go. So this was still listed in the documents. They still were monitoring her behavior, monitoring her travel, requiring through subpoena, misusing the subpoena power of the Justice Department, requiring United Airlines to tell them who she was, where she was flying, what her flight details were, and of the victims. And she even says as much in this Substack that she has no idea whether they were monitoring her or the victims, but either way, they shouldn't be monitoring anybody related to this other than the perpetrator, other than the convicted rapist in this case, Jeffrey Epstein. The Department of Justice, as she puts it in this piece, absolutely has some explaining to do. I wouldn't hold my breath, Julie K. Brown. You are unlikely to actually get an explanation or an apology or any kind of justice in this matter because they are working in service to Donald Trump, whose crimes, credible accusations against children, they're working to cover up. They're working to make sure Donald Trump is extricated from any difficulty, any problems whatsoever legally. And then we have the Supreme Court that has granted him virtually unlimited immunity as president of the United States. So even the crimes that the DOJ is committing right now will be covered, certainly by Donald Trump and then whoever he decides to pardon. The story is getting more sordid. The story is getting more dangerous. The story is exposing weaknesses in our system that must be shored up when Donald Trump is gone. When whoever takes office next, whatever Democrat and whatever the power structure is and the majority in the Senate and the House is, we need to make sure we plug the holes in our government. We need to make sure that we erase Donald Trump's fucking name from every building in the city, that we tear down the banners with his faces on them like it's some kind of a dictator move out of the 1930s. I hope Democrats are prepared. I hope they have the mettle to do what it takes to right the ship, to erase the damage done. Look, we can't forget that Donald Trump was president. In fact, I think it's important to never forget that Donald Trump was president and what led us here. But we need to make it impossible for this to happen again. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. We've just started to feel the pain of Donald Trump's idiotic understanding of a global economy. While Donald Trump and the Trump administration and his lackeys and toadies and lapdogs and bootlickers, well, they make it to the airwaves every day to tell you that things are great in the economy. Other things are gonna be great. Donald Trump says things are great. Prices are awesome. Things are fantastic. You're fine. Prices are down. Inflation is zero. What you've been told is not true. What you're experiencing when you go to the grocery store isn't true. The money that you don't have in your account because everything costs too much isn't fact. The billionaire says so. The man who's obsessed with his $400 million ballroom. But what they can't get away from, what they can't ignore, what they can't lie about, they can try to lie about it, are the number of bankruptcies that are taking place because of Donald Trump's wildly failed economic policies. Tariffs, to be specific. This year, we saw a 15-year high record number of bankruptcies over the previous year because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Businesses are going out of business. They're filing bankruptcy because they are failing because of Donald Trump. He has pushed them to the brink. They cannot survive any longer. This is the headline from The Independent. Bankruptcy soared to a 15-year high in 2025 as companies struggled to cope with Trump's trade wars. No fewer than 717 companies filed for Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 bankruptcy between January and November, according to S&P data reviewed by the Washington Post. This marks a 14% increase from the same period in 2024 and the highest rate since 2010, when the country was recovering from the Great Recession. The Great Recession brought to us by a Republican administration and decades of Republican policies deregulating the banks, letting them just run unfettered through the U.S. economy, making as much money as they can at the detriment of the rest of us. Banks were failing. You remember what took place in 2008. It was a nightmare. And then it had to be corrected by a Democrat administration with Barack Obama. Firms that went bust pointed to inflation interest rates, and Trump's trade policies, which have hampered supply chains and increased costs as drivers of their financial troubles. Business experts and economists told the Post that the Republican president's broad tariffs have strained import-dependent companies. While inflation recently came in lower than expected, it was up 2.7% year over year in November. Experts said many firms continue to shoulder added expenses to avoid raising prices for consumers. Now, part of the real scary thing here relative to these bankruptcies is the fact that what is taking place now is we're seeing leading indicators. We're seeing what is to come, because I showed a graph last week. We'll throw it up on screen, but you see this tan bar that goes down. This was people buying all kinds of things before the tariffs went into effect that they were going to sell through their supply chain, through their customer base, but they wanted to stock up before the tariffs hit. Now that that supply has been sold off, they're going to have to start buying things at the new higher prices because of Donald Trump's tariffs. People are not going to buy, and the downstream effect is there's going to be even more bankruptcies in 2026 filed than in 2025. And as we just learned, 2025 was a record since 2010. We've just started to feel the pain of Donald Trump's idiotic understanding of a global economy, his protectionist nonsense that is harming the same people he claims to care about, the same people he campaigned to help. And it's not just small businesses. Companies that make like $1 billion are also suffering. This portends bad things for the future. This next year is not going to be good. Quote, these companies are acutely aware of the affordability crisis confronting the average American. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, a professor at Yale's University School of Management, told the outlet, quote, they are doing their best to offset the cost of tariffs and high interest rates, but can only do so much. Those with pricing power will pass on the costs over time. Others will fold. The increase in bankruptcy filings was most notable among industrials, firms linked to construction, manufacturing, and transportation, the Post noted. The industry ranks among those hit hardest by Trump's tariffs, with the manufacturing sector posting 70,000 job losses year over year in November. This is also where Donald Trump has said we are going to win the most is manufacturing. We got to make it in America. You got to make it in America. It's hard to make something in America when the company that makes it in America goes bankrupt. You want them to make it in America, but you punish them to where they have to fold. Again, it's not even a childlike understanding. It's a demented lunatic understanding of how things work and what the causal relationship between these two things is. Consumer-oriented companies offering discretionary services or products, including those in home furnishings or fashion, made up the second biggest group. There was also a sizable surge in mega bankruptcies, as I was talking about earlier, filing by firms with over $1 billion in assets. Martin Schoenberger, a KPMG economist, added that the surge in bankruptcies highlights contradictions in the U.S. economy. Data published by the government this week, data given to you by Donald Trump this week, untrustable, not reliable. Let's get with it, media. Come on. Data given to us by the liar Donald Trump this week revealed that the economy grew at an annual rate of 4.3%, the fastest rate in 2 years. But economists warned that this growth is not evenly spread out, arguing it's largely fueled by spending from wealthier consumers and corporate investments in artificial intelligence. Quote, and we're going to end it here, we have an economy that looks strong on paper, but that might not necessarily be reflected in every single industry, Martin Schoenberger said. So look, This is why a diversified economy is most important. That's why we can't put all of our eggs in this AI basket that is most certainly getting ready. The bubble is getting ready to burst. We need a diversified portfolio in the economy of the United States. We need a service and tourism industry, which is now hurting because Donald Trump is threatening to jail people who come to the United States and haven't been sufficiently reverent to him on social media. People who are just here on vacation or ended up being detained by ICE and Border Patrol. It's a nightmare. He's harming sector after sector after sector. And I guess this was what he meant by make America great again. Their endless quest to make America white again, never was, is what's driving all of this. I'm going to end it there. It's tough coming back from a few days off, and this is these are the headlines. I invite you to this conversation, though. Let's talk about this in the comments below the video. If you're on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're on Facebook, thank you for sharing these natively. These are just natively on Facebook. You don't have to share a link. Just share the video. Like and follow Dollemore Daily on Facebook. I would appreciate it. Comment in the comments. Let's talk about it there. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a voicemail. 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. And I would ask that you please consider helping support this work that I do, helping me produce these videos. You can be a producer, a YouTube producer, a Facebook producer. Become a channel member on YouTube for $2 a month, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast and help support my work there. I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another.